Well, mysticism is usually defined as a direct experience of God. And in Judaism, it has a particularly important role. I think people often forget that Judaism is an Eastern religion. The prophets were really mystics.
Mm-hmm.
And also in Judaism, I've always very often wondered what's the Hebrew word for mysticism. In general, especially in Kabbalah, but even in general Judaism, you find that analysis of words very often yields a deeper meaning of what something is. And one of the words, the closest thing I could find for mysticism might be devekus, which means attachment to God. And literally means attachment, like you attach two things together. A person attaches himself to God. And this is what mysticism is, having a direct experience of the divine. Well, if you wanted to be pure about it, you can start with the prophets. As I said earlier, a prophet is really a mystic. Because how does a prophet get his inspiration? It's a direct experience of God, and this is how we define mysticism. But of course, it's usually known to us, Jewish mysticism, through Kabbalah. It seems that the prophetic tradition was somehow kept alive. Probably after the destruction of the first temple, it became a secret teaching, and eventually it was kept alive through the Kabbalah.
Define the Kabbalah for me. What does that mean?
The Kabbalah, well, the word Kabbalah really simply means tradition. That's all it means. And I think this is what I was saying, that let me also interject another interesting thing, that in the Talmud, the teachings of the prophets are referred to as Kabbalah.
I see.
And it seems like what Kabbalah was, the tradition that was kept alive, besides the general tradition of Torah and Talmud, was a tradition that was kept alive from the time of the prophets of how to keep this direct relationship to God. Several branches of Kabbalah. They're not actually officially...
There's no book.
There's no books, there's no catalog that says A, B, C.
Right.
But in my own study of Kabbalah, I found that there are more or less three basic branches of Kabbalah.
What are those three?
And the most familiar, of course, and that which is studied by most people who are considered Kabbalists, is the theoretical Kabbalah, which essentially tells you the mechanics of the divine realm. I think it's the easiest way of explaining the divine spheres, the angelic worlds, the world
sort of a philosophical overview?
A philosophical overview, and that really explains the other two branches of Kabbalah, and not only that, but gives the underlying philosophy of Judaism in general. The second branch of Kabbalah, which in the past few years I've been spending a lot of time investigating, and incidentally, it's interesting, there are very few published books on this source. On this branch, to a large degree, to work on it, I've had to go through libraries and go through ancient manuscripts, very often transcribing them and translating them for the first time. But this deals with the meditative Kabbalah. This is actually how to attain this direct experience of God through meditation. What is Jewish meditation? There is an aspect of Kabbalah, I would imagine, starting with the book of creation, which actually tells a person almost how to manipulate, not only how to manipulate himself to get himself closer to the divine, but how to manipulate sort of the strings of creation, or the forces of creation, and actually bring about changes in the physical world. If a person is trying to manipulate the force of creation through the dark side, through what the Kabbalists would call the Sitra Achra, the other side, the dark forces, this is absolutely forbidden. And it's forbidden not so much because the person is manipulating nature, but because he is actually trying to manipulate through that which goes against the divine, and then only in the most circumscribed areas. In fact, there are many Kabbalistic sources that seem to indicate a person actually needs a divine directive before one can use these forces.
Would you consider yourself a mystical rabbi?
Actually not. I consider myself an ordinary Orthodox rabbi, or an ordinary rabbi. I really don't like to even throw labels on.
Do you utilize any of these magical aspects in your study of the Kabbalah?
Magical, definitely not. Meditative, yes.